Students, today we will discuss a new chapter, that is resource and development. First of all, there are two terms, source and resource. What is source? Source is point of origin, or we call it as, these are such origins which we provide from the nature. Example, sun, it is a source, land, it is a source, water, air, all of them are sources. We obtain these sources. These are most beneficial for us. When we use these sources, at the time they will become the resource. What is resource? Resource is anything which is available in our environment, which can satisfy our needs, is called a resource. There are three terms related to the resource. Resources are technologically accessible, economically feasible, and socially acceptable. These are the three terms related to the resource. First of all, technologically accessible. What does it mean? There are people who know how to convert these sources into valuable things. There are different examples like metals such as iron, aluminum, copper. These are all metals. When we extract them from the earth, these are converted into more valuable goods, such as aeroplane, which is most important thing through which we reach to the different destinations in very less time. We can say that there is the need of technology. There are the persons who know how to convert these resources. That is known as technologically accessible. Meaning such people know how to convert these sources into resources, which will be very beneficial for us. Second, economically feasible. Those things which will be converted into valuable things. Economically feasible means people can afford to buy these things in the market. Means these are affordable things. There is an electric bulb, or it is electricity, which is mostly important in the modern times. Every person in the society can afford to buy this thing, which is mostly important. Third one, culturally acceptable. Culturally acceptable means there are the valuable things or finished goods. When they are valuable, society will accept at the time. When there would be any issue, people cannot accept them. There is an aeroplane. This is the new technology. People can reach to the destinations in very less time. If people will think that there would be any accident, they will not prefer to go through the air transport. Means they are taking such advantages from this means of transport. We can say that this is the new technology. It has much more advantages. Society is accepting this thing because we can reach to the destinations, far distant destinations in very less time. Now, there are different kinds of resources through which our life has become very comfortable because of the technology. Because there are most important people in this society who are providing the good things to the society. Technological know-how is very most important thing which is seen in such people. Now you have understood the difference between source and a resource. Source cannot be directly used. until it cannot be converted into a valuable thing. I give you some examples. Aluminium. Aluminium is a metal. It is converted into different types of things, such as aeroplane. Aeroplane is a valuable thing. Until there would not be a material like aluminium, aeroplane cannot be manufactured. We can say that aluminium is a source which is found in the earth's crust. Until it cannot be extracted from the earth's crust, aeroplane cannot be manufactured. These are some examples. First of all, there is the concept of source. Then we will come to the resource. Source is a point of origin. Sun is a source from which ultraviolet radiations are receiving. That solar energy is converted into electrical energy with the help of photovoltaic technology. These are some examples which I give you related to the source and resource. And definition of resource, once again, everything which is available in our environment and can satisfy our basic needs is known as a resource. And there are three terms related to this resource which I have discussed here. Resources are technologically accessible, economically feasible, and socially acceptable. Now we will move towards the classification of resources. Classification of resources. Resources are classified into two main types. One is natural resource, another is human resource. Natural resources are those resources which are provided by the nature. Human resources are most important resources because they transform natural resources into human-made resources. Natural resources, example, land, water, air, land, water, air, soil, sun or solar energy, sun, plants, animals. These are all natural resources. Natural resources are further classified into two subtypes. Number one, renewable natural resources. Second is non-renewable natural resources. Both are natural. What are renewable resources? These are those resources which can be renewed, recycled, reused, regenerated, and reproduced. These are all terms related to the renewable resources. Renewable resources are also known as inexhaustible resources which cannot be exhausted. These are also known as replenishable resources which can be renewed. Non-renewable resources are known as exhaustible resources which can be exhausted. These are known as non-replenishable resources. They cannot renew again and again. Once the reserves would be over extracted or there is no mark found in the earth's crust, such as coal, petroleum, natural gas, gold, and other metals, non-metals, means we cannot regenerate them. In this way, be regenerated over millions of years. They take millions of years to regenerate. In this way, these are some differences between renewable and non-renewable resources. Once again, renewable resources are also referred as inexhaustible resources. These are such resources which can be recycled, regenerated, reused, and reproduced. Example: land, water, air, plants, animals. These are all examples of renewable resources. Non-renewable: metals and fossil fuels. Both these resources are also referred as minerals. Minerals have two subtypes. One is fossil fuels and second is metals. We can say that metallic and non-metallic resources. First of all, renewable resources. Renewable resources are further classified into two subtypes, that is continuous resources and biological resources. Continuous resources and biological resources. Or biotic and abiotic resources. Biotic resources are those renewable natural resources which we obtain from the living organisms. Abiotic are those renewable natural resources which we obtain from the non-living objects, which are non-living natural objects, that is land, water, air. Biotic resources includes plants and animals. Abiotic resources includes land, water, air. Actually, these are the it is lithosphere, it is hydrosphere, it is atmosphere, and this is biosphere. These are four spheres interrelated with each other. Renewable resources have two subtypes: biotic or biological resources, abiotic. These are also known as continuous or flow resources, because these are not static. Water which is every time flowing from one place to another place, or it can be renewed through the water cycle. Land, there is rock cycle concept. Rocks which move towards the interior of the earth to the core, converted into magma. Magma then comes out on the earth's crust in the form of lava. Air, air is not static, it is moving every time. These are all continuous or flow resources. This was the classification related to the natural resources. Natural resources are two subtypes, renewable and non-renewable. Renewable has further two subtypes, biotic and abiotic. Now, non-renewable resources. Non-renewable resources are those resources which cannot be renewed. Or regenerated. They can regenerate, they can renew, but over millions of years. They take millions of years of their formation. Example: metals and fossil fuels. They are further classified into two subtypes. Number one, recyclable and non-recyclable resources. Non-recyclable resources. Recyclable are those non-renewable natural resources which can be recycled artificially. Example: when we extract iron, aluminum, copper, or any other metal, They have the property like they are malleable and ductile. They can be changed into sheets and wires. That is why they are known as recyclable resources. They can be recycled artificially, but not naturally. They can be recycled naturally, but they take millions of years. Non-recyclable resources are those resources which cannot be recycled after utilization, after use, such as fossil fuels. Coal, when coal is burned, heat is produced, there is not any mark behind. Likewise, we use iron. There are the 100 tons of iron. After 10 years, it would be 100 tons of iron. When we use coal or petroleum, petrol for the for our vehicles, after covering some distance, there is no mark in the there is not anything available in that vehicle. It means that all petroleum has utilized by that vehicle. In this way, there is this difference that some resources can be artificially recycled, artificially some resources cannot be recycled. Which cannot be recycled, that is known as non-recyclable resources. Example I have given here, that is fossil fuels, coal, petroleum and natural gas. Now we will move towards the human resources. Human resources are considered as the most important resources because they convert the natural environment or physical environment into human-made environment. It is categorized into two types. One is qualitative and quantitative resources, and second is institutions. In human resources, there are some institutions. Likewise, we have the big industries from which we obtain the different types of valuable goods which are available in our market. Such things have the property, how much we will manufacture, that is the quantity, and what would the property of those things would be the quality. We can take an example of aluminium that is manufactured in industries. Different types of goods are formed. That is quantity, how many, what is the number, what would be the number of those things which will be manufactured in those industries, and what would be the quality. We can say that same example we will give here. From aluminium we manufacture aircraft. The property of this or the work of this aircraft is to lift people or goods from one place to another place or destinations. This is the property, or quantity means how many aeroplanes were manufactured in a year. These are all things. Institutions give the qualitative population, such people who know how to utilize these resources. It would be the big institutions like universities, colleges, and big industries. From there are the different people, all valuable people who are converting this physical environment into human-made environment. In our environment, there are different kinds of human-made environment like roads, railways, trains are there. There are the big buildings, houses are there, schools, colleges. These are all human-made environment which has created by the humans. These are all known as human-made resources, but created by humans particularly. This was the outline classification. Now there are different bases on which the resources have been classified. Now there are various bases on which resources have been classified. First base, on the basis of origin. Number 2, on the basis of exhaustibility. Number 3, on the basis of ownership. Number 4, status of development. Status of development. In outline classification, we have discussed these resources. Now once again, on the basis of origin, resources are classified into 2 types: biotic and abiotic. In outline classification, these were 2 subtypes of renewable resources, and renewable resources one type of renewable resources. Biotic resources, these are derived from the living organisms. Abiotic resources are natural renewable resources which are derived from the natural non-living things. On the basis of exhaustibility, resources are classified into 2 types: renewable and non-renewable. Renewable and non-renewable. Renewable are those resources, natural resources, which can be renewed, regenerated or reproduced. Non-renewable resources are those resources which cannot be regenerated or recycled. But they can be regenerated or recycled over millions of years. Ownership. On the basis of ownership, resources are classified into 4 types. 4 types. Number 1, individual resources. Number 2, community resources. Number 3, national resources. And number 4, international resources. On the basis of ownership, resources are classified into 4 types: individual resources, community resources, national resources, and international resources. Individual resources are those resources which are owned and operated by individual or group of individuals, like land, house, private school or private industry. These are the individual properties. There is not the right of the whole community. Now, community resources are those resources which are owned and operated by a whole community. There is temple, there is graveyard, there is playground, there is a temple or any other religious place that is considered as the community resources. Natural resources are those resources which belong to a particular nation. It includes the roads, natural vegetation, forests, wildlife. These are all rivers and the water. These are all natural resources. But India has one advantage, that it is southern side is connected with the water resources. This natural resource in India, there are the 2 types of resources. One is land resource and another is water resource. Land resource, I told you that there are the roads, there are forests, there is wildlife, and these are all considered as national resources, but land resources. From the water side, from the ocean side, it is left side is the Arabian Sea, on the right side there is Bay of Bengal, on the south side there is Indian Ocean. In ocean, there are particularly resources like petroleum is extracted there. There is salt, common salt, there is magnesium, there is manganese. These are such resources which are obtained from the oceans. India has the right to extract them under certain distances, not at all. It is 12 nautical miles. It is 12 nautical miles. It is NM, nautical mile. On water, distance is measured in nautical miles. On land, distance is measured in miles and kilometers. You have to remember these points. International resources are those resources which are shared by the different countries. Land resources cannot be shared, you know. There is LOC in each and every country. One country cannot allow to the other country to extract its land resources. That is not possible. There are the possibilities, that is air that is used or for the lifting of the aeroplanes. There is the oceanic resources which can be used at the international level. UNO has permitted India to utilize such resources under 200 nautical miles. Otherwise, we have the permission up to 12 nautical miles according to the national resources. When it is the case of international resources, the distance has increased. It is 200 nautical miles with the permission of UNO. When a country can utilize resources up to 200 nautical miles, that becomes a zone or region which is known as EEZ, exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone. It is that zone under which a country can use oceanic resources particularly. That was ownership. It is status of development. With the help of this diagram, you can understand. On the basis of status of development, resources are classified into 4 types. Number 1, potential resources. Number 2, stock. Number 3, developed resources. Number 4, reserved resources. Reserved resources. Consider this diagram as the whole earth. There was a time when human beings don't know there are different types of resources in our earth. When human beings have no knowledge about the earth related to the resources, at that time such resources are known as potential resources. What is the definition of potential resources? These are such resources in which quantity and quality is unknown with the help of with no technology. There is no concept of technology. In earlier times, the early man was wandering from one place to another place. Why? Because he has no knowledge about the resources which were available, which were available in our environment. But at the time, he has no knowledge. He has no knowledge about the resources which were available there. When there would be no concept or any information related to those resources which are present in our environment are considered as potential resources. Consider this diagram in ancient times was potential resource. No information but resources were available. We divide this diagram into 2 parts. This whole diagram was potential resource. We'll show these arrows. We have divided this diagram into 2 parts. One part is this. It becomes the stock now. Stock. What is stock? Stock are those resources in which quantity and quality is known, but there is still lack of technology. How? What is the example? Water which is used for hydroelectricity, irrigation, other purposes, drinking, washing, preparation of food. There is water which is composed of 2 elements, that is hydrogen and oxygen. Some people don't know what are the advantages of such resources. We can say that one part is known, quantity of water is known. What is the quality? What are the other advantages of this water? People doesn't know. Uranium which is in Ladakh, people doesn't know. Resources, some people know there are the resources. What is the quality? What are the properties of such resources? Doesn't know. Means Ladakh, in Ladakh there is uranium. What are the uses and properties of such thing? People doesn't know. Further time, it will become the stock. In potential resources, we will give the example of solar energy which is found in Rajasthan is not fully utilized. And there are other areas where resources are there, but people have no concept about them. They are potential resources. In stock, I gave here an example of water. Water is composed of 2 elements, hydrogen and oxygen. We will divide this stock into further 2 subtypes. Now, this small arrow shows the developed resources. In our earth, there are some resources which have been fully developed with the help of technology. Developed resources are those resources whose quantity and quality is known with the help of technology. Means there is still some resources hidden on the Earth's crest, in the Earth's crust or on the Earth's surface, but people doesn't know. Still they are potential resources. Still they are in the stock list. Now, when such resources will be discovered, will be used, they will be in the group of developed resources. You can give example of hydroelectricity, solar energy, biogas. There are different examples which you can give here. Now divide this developed resource into further two subtypes. Here is one small part of this here developed resource, it is reserved resources. Now, it is not the case of now, the early man, it is the modern time. People, each and every person knows what are the advantages and disadvantages of such resources. What are those resources which can be exhausted, and what are the resources available in our environment which cannot be exhausted. Those resources which cannot be exhausted, which are renewable, but we have to protect them. In our earth there is the water which is renewable resource, but one time will occur, 2 billion people will face water scarcity throughout the world. What would be the result? What would the cause? What would the cause? Cause would be the pollutions, industrial pollutions, or those toxic gases which are thrown into the water. These are the major problems in our environment, that people are polluting this water. Water was in other cases renewable, but there are some areas which doesn't have the availability of water, like Rajasthan. They have to take this water from far distances for the drinking purposes and other purposes. They know the water is renewable or non-renewable. For them, it is not renewable because they have the less quantity of water. In Uttar Pradesh, there are the major industry. In West Bengal, there are the major industries. From industries, these toxic gases and these poisonous gases are thrown into the these liquids are thrown into the atmosphere and into the water. In this way, such renewable resources are again polluted. Here, in reserved resources, it is not the case of non-renewable resources. We will protect them. For the future generations, we have to protect renewable resources as well. Why? Because their quality should be sustained. That was the outline classification which we have completed here. Now, we will move towards another topic, that is resource development. Resource development. What is resource development? When resource is taking under utilization. First of all, these resources were the sources. When sources are converted into valuable things, at the time they will become resources. These resources have the advantages and disadvantages. Overall, we can say that resources has the advantages because we are benefiting from them. Resources through which our life has become comfortable, resources which are used in day-to-day life. Our life as well has become more comfortable because people have not to travel longer and longer distances. They can reach to the destinations in very less time. This is the advantage of such resources. We can say that development of resources has advantages as well as disadvantages. What are the disadvantages? Advantages we have discussed here because these are most important in our life. Our life has become comfortable. There are different kinds of resources which are daily used by the human beings. What are the disadvantages? There are different countries or developed countries which have used these resources in a wrong way. First, wrong method is depletion of resources. This depletion of resource led to the division in the society. These industrialists and these capitalists have installed or constructed big industries in which these laborers are working. These laborers are getting the daily wages from these industrialists. Day by day in the society there are the differences which are increasing day by day. The richer are become richer day by day and the poorer are become poorer day by day. In this way, this is the reason when these rich people are utilizing such resources or they are getting this development in the wrong way. First, depletion of resources. Second, in the division in the society. Third, this third problem is not faced by the rich people. This is faced by the poor people as well. Poor people as well as rich people are influenced by this problem, that is environmental pollution. From industries there are the toxic gases, there are toxic chemicals which are thrown into the water bodies, in gases which are thrown into the atmosphere. Means there are various problems, that is a respiratory problem and other problems which are facing, that is waterborne diseases are there, which are facing by these people, whether it would be rich or poor. But this problem has started by the greedy people. Now what is the preventive measure of this big problem? The preventive measure is the sustainable development. Sustainable development. Sustainable development is one preventive measure, and there was one meeting which was organized in that is in Brazil. The capital city is the Rio de Janeiro. 100 heads from the 100 countries come there. 100 heads from the 100 countries were joined in Rio de Janeiro, and they have discussed the problem which the people were facing. What were the problems? We have discussed them. Depletion of resource, that society was dividing into two parts, haves and have-nots. Environmental pollution was there. Now this resource development is not important in modern times. It was important, but the rich people have taken the wrong way through which major problems are creating such people, through which poor people are also influenced by this problem. I have already told you that greenhouse gases which are thrown into the atmosphere, there is a respiratory problem, waterborne diseases. This is not a problem which are facing by the rich people only. There are the poor people as well which are influencing more by this. Day by day there is poverty, there are different kinds of diseases which these people are facing. Now this meeting which was held in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil, the main points were these which were discussed there. What are the preventive measures to curb poverty, to decrease the influence of those pollutants which are thrown into the this environment, in order to minimize such things, and they have taken a decision to minimize these such problems which are creating in our environment. Now sustainable development is overall the preventive measure through which environment would be protected. That is sustainable development. Sustainable development. What is sustainable development? Sustainable development. Development should be there. Development should be there without damaging environment, without compromising the needs of the future generations. That is sustainable development. We cannot say that development should not be there. Development should be there, but without damaging environment. M.K. Gandhi has added one sentence related to this sustainable development. There is enough for everybody's need, but not anybody's greed. This anybody's greed, I have discussed here that there are the greedy people. There are greedy people who have got the development, who have constructed the big industries and earned the foreign exchange, but they don't know how much environment have been influenced by those wrong actions. We can say that this is the sentence which is related to the sustainable development or conservation. Another preventive measure, that is resource planning. If we have to utilize, if we have to plan to do any work, there should be side by side planning. That is known as resource planning. What is resource planning? What is resource planning? Resource planning refers to the judicious and proper utilization of resource. Why resource planning is important in India? Because there is unequal distribution of resources. There is unequal distribution of resources. Rajasthan is rich in solar energy. Arunachal Pradesh is rich in water resources. Rajasthan lacks the water resource. Arunachal Pradesh lacks the infrastructure. Ladakh is rich in this culture, their rich culture. They lack water resources. They lack the development. They lack the technology. There are the various things which they are lacking. In different states, there are the different problems seen. In Bihar, it is rich in resources, but again, there is the lack of technology. That is why resource planning is important in India. Resource planning, we have seen that there are various problems facing in India because there is unequal distribution of resources. This unequal distribution of resources is very harmful. When it would be continued on the earth or on particularly in India, it would be very harmful for the people. Okay. There should be equal distribution of resources. There should be equal distribution of resource among the people. This resource planning means we have to plan that resources should be utilized in a proper way or in a judicious way. Now, resource planning have 3 steps. In resource planning, we have to take 3 steps. What is the first step? Survey. We have to make survey of those areas where resources are found. Second is mapping. In the first point, there is survey, again mapping, then we can use resource. Mapping means we will prepare a map of those areas where resources, what type of resources found there. In second, resource planning, there should be the technology. Number third, match our development to the overall development of the country. What does it mean? Technology, technology is most important for the utilization of resources. I mean that there should be the less wastage of resources. Match our development. If we will observe our development, we are at the developmental level, we have the availability of each and every resource. If we have, then we will check the overall development of the country. In any state, if there would be any problem, such resources should be available in those areas as well. In Bihar, it is rich in resources. They should be extracted and they should be fully utilized in a proper way, in a judicious way. Then environment would be protected as well as our needs would be fulfilled side by side. That was about the resource development and resource planning. Now there is conservation of resource. Conservation of resource means protection of resources. Conservation of resources. Conservation of resources. Conservation means protection and preservation of resources. Whether there would be natural resources as human resources or any other resource, we have to protect them. Now there are two questions: why we conserve and why do we conserve and how do we conserve? Why do we conserve these resources? Because all of these resources are not renewable. These are renewable, non-renewable resources. It is not the case of non-renewable resources, we have to protect them. There is another category of that is renewable resources. As I already told you, in water, the quality of the water is polluted day by day. Means that was the renewable resource, but we have to protect it as well. The quality of the water day by day is decreasing. So these resources take millions of years of their formation. That is why we have to conserve them. These are the cases why we have to conserve them, because day by day when the reserves would be minimized, the cost on other side would be increased. We have to, for the sustainable development, for the economic development, for other purposes, that is why we have to conserve them. How do we conserve? How do we conserve? Here is the concept of that if it would be the case of the land resources, soil erosion, there is the afforestation concept and reforestation concept, that we will plant more and more trees, that means soil erosion would be protected. Land degradation, or there is the land degradation or land degradation concept, that when we apply more fertilizers to the land, it will become the acidic, soil become acidic, and when we apply more water to the land, the soil become saline, the salinity will be increased. Proper irrigation should be there, proper applications of these fertilizers should be there, and there is the concept of 3 R's. 3 R's, that is reuse, recycle and reduce. Reduce concept means that we have to use such resources, but in a limited manner. That was the concept of conservation of resources, why we conserve and how do we conserve resources. In conservation, once again, that M.K. Gandhi has added one sentence, as I already told you: there is enough for everybody's need, but not for anybody's greed. Gandhiji was against mass production. He wanted production by masses. This is the actually meaning of that same sentence. Production by masses means each and every person should have the right of using these resources, not by the particular people or such greedy people who have taken this development in a wrong way. This was the conservation which we have discussed here. There is another topic, that is land resources, which will be discussed in next lecture. I hope that you have understood whatever I have discussed here. Thank you very much. God bless you.